Hi, my name is Jenn Thornhill-Verma. I'm the author of Cod Collapse, The Rise and Fall of Newfoundland Saltwater Cowboys, which this year has been shortlisted for the Democracy 250 Atlantic Book Award for historical writing. Thank you so much. I've chosen a few passages to read, short passages. The first is about singer-songwriter Wayne Bartlett, who lives at Carpoon, and how he came to write the song She's Gone, Boys, She's Gone, which really became an anthem of the 1992 Cod moratorium. The other two passages that I've selected really speak to the danger of fishing. My heart goes out to families, past and present, who've lost family members to the fishery. It is considered one of the most dangerous jobs. It's a challenging field to get into, and I wanted to be able to share some of the stories that I came across along the way in learning more about the people who are fishing across Newfoundland and Labrador, past and present. So first, Wayne Bartlett was overlooking Carpoon Harbor when the idea for the song came to him. It was 1991, and no one knew the Canadian government would close the Newfoundland cod fishery the following July, and yet the Cod Collapse was as clear as the view that day from his living room window. His entire life, Wayne Bartlett had watched the fishing boats come in and out of this bay. Everyone did, with their harbor views from their kitchen and coffee tables. Even the gravestones just around and over the hill have an ocean view. With the fog, you could often hear the boats before you'd see them. The putt-putt-putt would eventually be replaced with a purr as inboard motors advanced to the outboard variety. In the same way, hand lining and jigging cod would eventually be replaced with cod trapping and gill netting. Still, the results were the same. Small boat fishermen would return to their wharves at the end of their driveways and houses with their skiffs and dories resting low in the water, weighed down by cod, often packed to the gunnels. Kids like Bartlett would meet their old man and earn a few bucks cutting out cod tongues from the discarded fish heads and selling them about town. The harbor hummed with life in those days, fishers splitting, drying, and salting cod on the fish flakes, seagulls screaming for their share of the leftovers, kids spinning in and around the wharves, gallivanting along the beaches, zipping in and out of coves and darting up and over the hills, dogs barking at everyone and everything and each other too, and mothers shouting for their kin to come home. It was dinner, then it would be supper, and then it would be bedtime before long. But Bartlett knew things were amiss that day back in 1991. Usually, when inshore fishermen came back to the wharf, having checked their traps or nets, the stern of the boat would be seated deeper in the water than when they set out, weighed down by cod. When Bartlett began writing the tune, he saw the boats coming back, one by one, just as they had set out. Empty. It was the true definition of a water haul, the nets catching only water. This next excerpt is about fifth-generation fisherman Gene Maloney, who I've written about and actually did a short film with Kat Frick Miller called Last Fish, First Boat. And it's a story about Gene falling overboard. As soon as Gene Maloney hit the water, panic set in. He gasped. That's the body's way of coming to terms with the frigid water. In the chaos and commotion, your arms start flailing too. You try to grab onto something, anything, and all you want to do is to get air in your lungs, a steady flow of air. But now you're hyperventilating. You're inhaling seawater. It's ice cold, and yet it burns your lungs and airway. You think you're drowning. You are drowning. Then someone has a hold of you, and as fast as you were in this situation, you're out of it. But not quite. There's the coughing. You cough your belly up, it seems. How much water did you take on? The days and days worth of coughing answers your question, though you can't give a precise amount. Too much. In bed, feeling and looking oddly out of place. You shouldn't be here. You have a job to do, you think. It takes time to recover from those seconds in the water. Still, you'll go back out there and take the same risks the moment you can because that's your livelihood. That's all you know, and darn it, you're good at it. So for Gene Maloney, life carried on after the accident. And then last passage relates to a shipwreck. The ship completely destroyed. Everyone on board survives. And we believe it's a story that my paternal grandfather, Reginald Thornhill, was involved in. It was captained by Arch Thornhill, also from the Burin Peninsula. So they had been dory fishing with a mothership, and so the mothership was dropping the dories and then coming around and picking them up. So Captain Arch, who's on the vessel, and all of the dorymen are out in their dories. He maneuvers the vessel to initiate the process of going back and picking up each of the dorymen. But the Florence caught a headwind, flattening its sails. The jibstay, which affixes the forwardmost sail, had broken from the masthead, the highest point of the schooner's mast. The mast was well over the gangway, the narrow pathway connecting one end of the ship to the other. At this point, water gushing up over the stern where the masts had broken off entirely. Water started coming in the cabin. All 10 dories were out and began making their way back, having noticed some other ships' wrecked sails. Surprisingly, all of the dorymen came aboard within the next hour. Aware that the Florence would sink, they gathered their belongings and whatever fishing gear was salvageable before setting back out into the dories. Meanwhile, Captain Orlando Lace and his crew of the Mahaska from Lunenburg, Nova Scotia, were also fishing in the area. They could see there was a slab on the water where the Florence had been. With the Second World War having recently begun, they worried that a submarine might have sunk the Florence. The captain, a Newfoundlander and a First World War veteran, braved the scene despite the apprehension of his crew. By the time he reached the Florence, she was sinking, and most of the men had their belongings and gear aboard their dories. Before Captain Arch Thornhill abandoned his ship, he poured gasoline across her decks and set fire to the Florence as a visual warning to other skippers in the area. The Mahaska, meanwhile, hoisted the 10 dories and stacked them next to her own 10 on deck. The Florence sank in a few hours, with her head up high, stern first, as Captain Arch would proudly report. Thanks again. This is the book, Cod Collapse, and I really appreciate being shortlisted, and thank you to my publisher, Nimbus Publishing.